She'll eat all of us. People laughed and mocked the obese girl. Until this mountain man showed up. The autumn sun hung golden over Prospect Valley, Montana Territory, October 1878. The entire settlement, nearly 200 souls, had gathered for the annual Harvest Festival, the biggest celebration of the year. Tables groaned with food, musicians tuned their fiddles, and children ran wild between the wagons. But not everyone was celebrating. 24-year-old Hannah Brennan stood at the edge of the gathering, trying to make herself invisible. She'd come because her employer, Mrs. Coulter, insisted that everyone from the boarding house attend. But Hannah knew what happened at community gatherings. She became entertainment for those who found cruelty amusing. She was watching children play when she heard the first comment. "Look who showed up. Hungry Hannah." The voice belonged to Wade Pritchard, the blacksmith's son, a man of 26 who'd made tormenting Hannah his personal hobby since she'd arrived in Prospect Valley 6 months ago. Hannah's face burned, but she kept her eyes on the children, hoping Wade would lose interest. He didn't. "What's the matter, Hannah? Eyeing all that food on the tables?" Wade raised his voice, drawing attention. "Better watch out, folks. She'll eat all of us out of house and home." Laughter rippled through nearby groups. Hannah felt her stomach twist with familiar shame. "Now, Wade, leave the poor girl alone," Mrs. Henderson said half-heartedly, though she was smiling. "I'm just being honest. Look at her. She's already the size of a draft horse. By next harvest, she'll need her own wagon just to get around." More laughter, louder this time. People were actively gathering now, sensing entertainment. Hannah wanted to flee, but her legs felt frozen. "Tell you what," Wade continued, warming to his audience. "Let's take bets. How much food can Hannah eat before she explodes? I say 3 whole pies." "4," someone called out. "She could eat a whole pig by herself," another voice added. The crowd was growing, the mockery escalating. Hannah felt tears sting her eyes but refused to let them fall. She would not give them that satisfaction. "Come on, Hannah," Wade gestured toward the food tables. "Show us what you can do. Let's see if you really can eat us all out of food." "Please stop," Hannah said quietly. "What was that? Can't hear you over the sound of your stomach rumbling." The laughter was cruel now, no longer even pretending to be good-natured. Hannah looked around desperately for someone, anyone, who might intervene. Mrs. Henderson had turned away. Mr. Coulter was studiously examining his boots. The Reverend was conveniently deep in conversation with someone else. No one wanted to risk becoming the next target by defending the town's fat girl. "I've got an idea," Wade announced. "Let's weigh her. We've got the livestock scale right over there. I bet she outweighs the prize bull." Several men started moving toward Hannah, clearly intending to actually drag her to the scale. Panic flooded through her. This had gone beyond words into physical humiliation. "That's enough." The voice cut across the gathering like a gunshot, not loud but carrying absolute authority. Everyone froze. A man emerged from the crowd, and Hannah's breath caught. She'd seen him once before, 3 months ago, when he'd come through town selling furs, but she'd never spoken to him. He stood perhaps 6 feet tall, with a build that suggested coiled strength rather than bulk. His age was hard to determine, 40, maybe older, with weathered features and dark hair graying at the temples. He wore well-maintained buckskin clothing and carried himself with the confidence of someone accustomed to command. But it was his eyes that made people step back, ice blue and absolutely merciless as they swept over the crowd. "Captain Mackenzie," Mr. Coulter said nervously, "we were just having some fun?" "Fun." Captain Mackenzie's voice dripped with contempt. "You call public humiliation fun? Now see here," Wade started. "You see here." Mackenzie stepped forward, and despite being roughly the same height as Wade, he somehow seemed to tower over the younger man. "I served 20 years in the cavalry, fought in 2 wars, lost count of how many men I commanded, how many battles I survived, and in all that time, you know what I learned?" He looked around the crowd, making eye contact with individuals who'd been laughing moments before. "I learned that cowards always attack the most vulnerable, because they're too weak to face real threats, too pathetic to prove themselves against equals. So they find someone they perceive as defenseless and tear them down to make themselves feel big." His gaze returned to Wade. "You're a coward. And everyone here who laughed? You're cowards too." Wade's face turned purple. "You can't talk to me like—" "I just did. And here's what happens next. You're going to apologize to Miss Brennan, Hannah whispered. To Miss Brennan, you're going to apologize sincerely and publicly. And then you're going to leave this festival, because your presence is offensive to decent people. Like hell I will, Wade balled his fists. Who do you think you are, coming into our town and giving orders? I'm someone who's killed more men than you've probably met, all legally, all in service of my country, but dead nonetheless. Mackenzie's voice was conversational, which somehow made it more terrifying. I'm someone who knows 17 ways to break your arm so badly you'd never work a forge again. And I'm someone who's done tolerating bullies. The crowd had gone silent. Even Wade seemed to realize he was outmatched. Now, apologize to Miss Brennan, or find out what happens when you push someone who actually knows how to fight. Wade looked around for support and found none. His friends had mysteriously disappeared into the crowd. Finally, his bravado crumbled. I'm sorry, Miss Brennan, he muttered. Didn't mean nothing by it. Louder. And look at her when you say it. Wade swallowed hard, then turned to Hannah and spoke more clearly. I apologize for mocking you, Miss Brennan. It was wrong. Mackenzie nodded once. Now leave. Wade left quickly, his humiliation complete. Mackenzie's ice-blue eyes swept the crowd once more. Anyone else want to explain why they think humiliating a young woman is acceptable entertainment? Silence. People found urgent reasons to be elsewhere, drifting away in embarrassed clusters. Within minutes, the crowd had dispersed, leaving Hannah standing alone with her unexpected defender. She didn't know what to say. Thank you seemed inadequate. She was also acutely aware that she was now alone with this intimidating stranger who'd just threatened violence on her behalf. Mackenzie's expression softened slightly as he looked at her. You all right, Miss Brennan? Yes, thank you. You didn't have to. Yes, I did. Watching cruelty and doing nothing makes you complicit. He paused. Have you eaten? Actual food, not mockery. Hannah shook her head. She'd been too nervous to approach the food tables, knowing it would trigger comments about her appetite. Come on then, let's remedy that. He walked toward the food tables, and after a moment's hesitation, Hannah followed. People watched but kept their distance. No one wanted to draw Captain Mackenzie's attention after his display. He handed Hannah a plate and gestured to the spread of food. Take whatever you want. Don't worry about what anyone thinks. They'll say I'm proving them right. They'll say cruel things regardless of what you do, so you might as well eat if you're hungry. His voice was matter-of-fact, without pity or condescension. Starving yourself won't earn their approval. It'll just make you miserable. The logic was so simple, so obvious, yet no one had ever said it to Hannah before. She took a modest portion of roasted chicken, some vegetables, and a roll. Mackenzie raised an eyebrow. That's all? I don't want people to— Miss Brennan, with respect, you're still making decisions based on their cruelty. If you're hungry, eat. If you're not, don't. But make the choice for yourself, not because of what bullies might say. Hannah stared at him, then slowly added more food to her plate: beef, potatoes, another roll, a piece of pie. Her actual appetite, not the meager portions she usually allowed herself. They sat at a table under a large oak tree, away from the main gathering but still visible. Mackenzie ate his own meal without commenting on hers, and gradually Hannah relaxed enough to actually taste the food. Can I ask you something? She said after a while. Ask. Why did you help me? You don't know me. Mackenzie set down his fork. I spent 20 years watching men follow orders without questioning whether those orders were just. Watched good people get destroyed by systems that didn't value them. When I retired from the cavalry 3 years ago, I decided I was done standing by when I saw injustice. He met her eyes. You were being tormented by cowards and no one else was stopping it, so I did. It's not complicated. People will talk about you defending me. Let them. I've survived 2 wars and more battles than I can count. I'm not concerned about gossip. They finished eating in comfortable silence. When Hannah stood to leave, Mackenzie stood as well. Where are you staying in town? Mrs. Coulter's boarding house. I work there as a cook and housekeeper. Good establishment. Are they treating you decently? Hannah hesitated. Mrs. Coulter wasn't cruel exactly, but she paid barely enough to cover room and board, and she made frequent comments about Hannah's size. Mackenzie read her silence accurately. I see. Well, if that changes, if they become unkind, you come find me. I'm camped 3 miles north of town, near Willow Creek. Anyone can give you directions. Why would you help me again? Because that's what decent people do. They help. He tipped his hat. Take care of yourself, Miss Brennan, and remember, you don't owe bullies anything. Not your hunger, not your shame, not your silence. He walked away, leaving Hannah standing under the oak tree with those words echoing in her mind. For the first time in months, years maybe, she felt something shift inside her, a small crack in the armor of shame she'd worn for so long. Maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to accept cruelty as her due. The days following the Harvest Festival were tense. Wade Pritchard and his friends glared at Hannah whenever they saw her, though they kept their distance. The rest of town treated her with a new wariness, not respect exactly, but awareness. She was no longer invisible. Mrs. Coulter, however, was not pleased. "Hannah, I need to speak with you," she said 3 days after the festival, her voice tight. They sat in the boarding house parlor, and Mrs. Coulter folded her hands in her lap with obvious displeasure. "That scene at the festival, the one you caused, has put me in a difficult position." "I didn't cause—" "Don't interrupt. Wade Pritchard's father is an important man in this community, the blacksmith. We depend on his services, and you embarrassed his son publicly." Hannah's chest tightened. "Wade was mocking me. Captain Mackenzie defended me." "Yes, and that defense has made things uncomfortable for everyone. People are talking about you, about that mountain man, about impropriety." "There was no impropriety. He just told Wade to stop." "Hannah," Mrs. Coulter's voice was firm, "I can't have this kind of attention on my establishment. It's bad for business, so I'm afraid I'm going to have to let you go." The words hit like a physical blow. "Let me go? I'll give you a week's wages and a good reference letter, but I need you out by the end of the week." "Where am I supposed to go?" "That's not my concern. Perhaps you should have thought about consequences before making a scene." "I didn't make a scene. I was being humiliated, and someone finally stood up for me." Mrs. Coulter stood, signaling the conversation was over. "Friday, Hannah. Have your things packed." Hannah stumbled to her tiny room, her mind reeling. She had $17 saved, not nearly enough to travel anywhere or establish herself in a new town, and Mrs. Coulter's good reference was likely to be lukewarm at best. She was going to be homeless. That evening, as Hannah sat on her narrow bed trying not to cry, she heard a commotion downstairs, Mrs. Coulter's voice, then a deeper male voice, footsteps on the stairs, a knock on her door. "Miss Brennan, it's Captain Mackenzie." Hannah opened the door in confusion. "How did you—" "Mrs. Coulter tried to turn me away. I explained that I wouldn't be leaving until I spoke with you." She reconsidered. His ice-blue eyes assessed her. "I heard rumors in town. Is it true she's dismissing you?" Hannah nodded, not trusting her voice. "May I come in? Door stays open for propriety, but we need to talk." She stepped back and he entered her small room, immediately making it feel even smaller with his presence. "Why are you dismissing her?" Mackenzie called down the stairs to Mrs. Coulter. "That's between me and my employee." "Wrong. It's my concern, since I'm the one who caused the scene, as you're no doubt claiming." He turned back to Hannah, his voice gentler. "Tell me what happened." Hannah explained the conversation with Mrs. Coulter. As she spoke, Mackenzie's expression grew increasingly hard. "So she's punishing you for being defended, for having the audacity to not accept humiliation quietly." He shook his head. "Typical cowardice. She won't confront the actual bullies. They're too important. But she'll sacrifice you to appease them." "I don't know what to do. I have nowhere to go. No, you have options." Mackenzie cut her off, his voice firm. "First option. I go downstairs right now and explain to Mrs. Coulter why dismissing you would be a terrible decision, including reminding her that retaliation against someone for being harassed is legally problematic." She reconsiders. "She won't. She will if I'm persuasive enough." "Second option. You come work for me." Hannah blinked. "What?" "I need a housekeeper and cook. I've been living in a cabin near Willow Creek for 3 months, and it's a disaster. I can cook basic trail food, but I'm terrible at maintaining a home. I'm offering you employment, room, board, and $30 a month. That's more than Mrs. Coulter's paying you, I'd wager." $30? Hannah's current wage was $15 monthly, and half of that went to room and board. Fair wage for honest work. The cabin has 2 bedrooms, so you'd have privacy. I'm gone most days checking trap lines or hunting. You'd work when I'm there, have free time when I'm not." He paused. "It's isolated. The nearest neighbor is 4 miles away, but you'd be safe, fed, and paid fairly." Hannah's mind raced. Living alone with a man would destroy her reputation, what little remained of it. But staying in Prospect Valley meant finding new employment in a town that had just watched her employer dismiss her for being defended against bullies. "People will talk," she said quietly. "People are already talking. They called you names at the festival. They'll call you different names if you work for me. The question is, which scenario leaves you safer and more secure?" He had a point. Her reputation was already ruined in Prospect Valley's eyes. At least working for Captain Mackenzie would mean safety, decent pay, and apparently respect. "What kind of work would you expect?" "Cooking, cleaning, laundry, basic household maintenance. Nothing you're not already doing here, but for better pay and better treatment." His voice was firm. "And to be absolutely clear, I'm offering employment, not anything else. You'd have your own space, your own life. This is a business arrangement." Hannah looked around her tiny room, thought about Mrs. Coulter's coldness, about Wade Pritchard's mockery, about the entire town's willingness to watch her suffer for entertainment. "I'll do it. I'll work for you." Mackenzie nodded once. "Good. Can you be ready by Friday?" "Yes." "Then I'll be back with a wagon Friday morning, 8 o'clock. He stood. "And Miss Brennan, you're making the right choice. Sometimes the only way to escape a bad situation is to walk away from it entirely." After he left, Hannah sat on her bed, simultaneously terrified and relieved. She was leaving Prospect Valley, leaving the mockery, the cruelty, the constant humiliation. She was walking toward something unknown. But unknown had to be better than this, didn't it? Captain Mackenzie's cabin was nothing like Hannah expected. From his descriptions, she'd imagined a primitive shack. Instead, she found a well-built log structure with real glass windows, a covered porch, and smoke rising from a stone chimney. "Built it myself," Mackenzie said, helping Hannah down from the wagon. "Took me 6 months, but it's solid. Should last 50 years if maintained properly." The interior was spacious, a main room with kitchen area, a table and chairs and a stone fireplace. 2 doors led to separate bedrooms. "This one's yours." Mackenzie opened the left door, revealing a room with a real bed, a chest of drawers, and a window overlooking a meadow. "There's fresh linens in the trunk. Fireplace is shared. It heats both rooms." It was the nicest room Hannah had ever occupied. "The kitchen's stocked with basics. I'll show you where everything is, and you can organize however makes sense to you." He paused. "I'm usually gone from dawn until mid-afternoon. I check trap lines, hunt, sometimes scout for settlers heading through. When I'm here, I work on equipment maintenance, curing hides, that sort of thing. I don't expect you to entertain me or make conversation if you don't want to. What do you expect? Meals when I'm here, clean clothes, the cabin kept reasonably tidy, that's it." He met her eyes. "You'll have plenty of time to yourself. If you want to read, sew, walk the property, whatever brings you peace, do it. You're not a prisoner here. You're an employee with fair working conditions." Over the following days, Hannah discovered he meant what he said. Mackenzie left at dawn, returning around 3 in the afternoon. Hannah prepared breakfast, cleaned the cabin, did laundry, and prepared dinner. But there were hours each day when she had nothing to do but enjoy the silence. Silence without mockery. Silence without fear. Just peace. She explored the area around the cabin, discovering a small stream perfect for washing clothes, meadows filled with wildflowers, and stands of pine trees that smelled like heaven. No one was around to comment on her size or her appetite. No one was watching to see if she ate too much or moved awkwardly. Mackenzie treated her with consistent, respectful courtesy. He thanked her for meals, complimented her cooking, and gave her space. When they did talk, it was about practical matters, supplies needed, repairs to be done, weather predictions. But one evening, about 2 weeks after her arrival, Mackenzie broke the routine. "Miss Brennan, can I ask you something personal?" Hannah looked up from her mending. "Yes? Why did you stay in Prospect Valley for 6 months? When did the mockery start?" "First day. When I got off the stage, Wade Pritchard said I needed my own wagon to carry all that weight. Everyone laughed. Her voice was flat, recounting facts. It never stopped after that. Why didn't you leave? Where would I go? I had no money, no references, no family. Mrs. Coulter offered me a job with room and board. It was survival. Mackenzie nodded slowly. I understand survival. Sometimes you endure hell because the alternative seems worse. He poked the fire. Can I tell you something? Of course. I'm not actually retired from the cavalry. I was discharged, dishonorably. Hannah's eyes widened. Dishonorable discharge was rare and serious. I disobeyed a direct order. Colonel wanted us to burn out a Cheyenne village, women and children included. Said they'd been harboring hostiles, which was a lie. They were peaceful, had treaties, had done nothing wrong. His voice was controlled, but carried old anger. I refused the order, stood between my commanding officer and those people, got half my unit to stand with me. The colonel backed down, but he made sure I paid for it. Dishonorably discharged for insubordination. You saved innocent people. I destroyed my career, lost my pension, my reputation, everything I'd built over 20 years. For 3 years, I couldn't get work anywhere because of that black mark on my record. Finally came west, where fewer people care about cavalry politics. He looked at Hannah directly. I'm telling you this because I want you to understand something. Sometimes doing the right thing costs you everything, but you do it anyway. Because living with yourself afterward matters more than what other people think. Why are you telling me this? Because I see you struggling with shame over your body, over needing help, over not being perfect according to Prospect Valley standards, and I want you to know, the only person whose opinion of you matters is you. Everyone else's judgment is just noise. Hannah felt tears prick her eyes. How do you stop caring what people think? You don't stop caring. You just decide their cruelty says more about them than about you. He smiled slightly. And you surround yourself with people who see your worth, like how I see you. What do you see? I see someone who survived 6 months of torment without becoming cruel herself. Someone who works hard, maintains dignity, and has the courage to take a risk on an unknown future. His voice was firm. That's character. That's strength. The rest is just flesh and bone, and it doesn't define worth. Those words, coming from this hard, capable man who'd given up everything for principle, meant more to Hannah than anything else in her life. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me, just believe it, because it's true. Winter arrived early in the mountains, bringing deep snow and bitter cold. Hannah and Mackenzie settled into their routine. He handled outdoor work, she managed the cabin, and together they maintained a comfortable, respectful partnership. But isolation wasn't complete. Occasional travelers stopped at the cabin seeking shelter or directions. Mackenzie never turned to anyone away, and Hannah found herself feeding trappers, prospectors, and settlers heading west. Then, in late January, trouble arrived. 3 men rode up to the cabin one afternoon, rough types with hard eyes and guns worn low. Mackenzie was out checking trap lines, leaving Hannah alone. The lead rider dismounted without invitation, his companions following. Well, what do we have here? Hannah stood on the porch trying to project confidence she didn't feel. Can I help you, gentlemen? Gentlemen, that's funny. The leader grinned, showing missing teeth. We're looking for Captain Mackenzie. Heard he's got a woman living with him. That you? I'm his housekeeper. He'll be back soon. Housekeeper. The man laughed. That what they're calling it now? His eyes moved over Hannah in a way that made her skin crawl. Big girl like you must be good for more than cleaning. You need to leave. Or what? You gonna make us? He stepped onto the porch. Tell you what. You be nice to us, we might not tell folks in Prospect Valley about Mackenzie's housekeeper. Wouldn't want your reputation getting any worse, would you? Hannah's hand moved behind her back, finding the rifle Mackenzie insisted she keep within reach. Last warning, leave now. The man reached for her, and Hannah brought the rifle around, cocking it in one smooth motion, exactly as Mackenzie had taught her. Touch me and find out if I know how to use this. The man's grin faded. You wouldn't. Try me. A tense moment stretched, then hoofbeats approached, Mackenzie returning from his trap lines. He took in the scene instantly. 3 armed men, Hannah with a rifle, the tension thick enough to cut. There a problem here? His voice was calm, but his hand rested on his gun. Your woman's got no manners, the leader said, though he'd backed away from the porch. My employee has excellent judgment. If she's pointing a gun at you, you've earned it. Mackenzie dismounted smoothly, positioning himself between Hannah and the men. Now state your business or leave. We heard you might be hiring for work. I'm not. And even if I was, I wouldn't hire men who threaten women. Now, get off my property. The three men exchanged glances, clearly weighing their options. Finally, they mounted their horses. This ain't over, the leader said. Yes, Mackenzie replied quietly. It is. If I see you again, I'll assume hostile intent, and I have legal authority as a territorial scout to defend my property. Choose wisely. After they rode away, Mackenzie turned to Hannah. You all right? Yes, they didn't touch me. Good handling with the rifle. You didn't hesitate. You taught me not to. Hannah lowered the weapon, her hands shaking now that the danger had passed. They said they'd spread rumors about us. Let them. We know the truth. That's what matters. But Hannah wasn't so sure. That evening, as they sat by the fire, she brought it up again. Captain Mackenzie, those men are going to tell everyone that we're lovers, living in sin, probably. He didn't seem concerned. They'll also probably claim I've got gold hidden here, that I'm a deserter, that I worship the devil. Men like that lie for entertainment. But what if people believe them? Some will. The same people who laughed at Wade Pritchard's cruelty. Why do you care what they think? Hannah struggled to explain. Because reputations matter. Because without a good reputation, women can't find work, can't be respected. You found work. Here, you're respected. By me, by the trappers we've fed, by travelers we've helped. His voice was firm. Your worth isn't determined by Prospect Valley's opinion. It's determined by your character, your actions, your integrity. Easy for you to say. You're a man. Your reputation doesn't. My reputation got me dishonorably discharged. I know exactly what it's like to have your entire identity destroyed by other people's judgments. He leaned forward, and I learned that you can either spend your life trying to earn approval from people who'll never give it, or you can live according to your own values and let the gossip wash off like rain. Hannah was quiet for a long moment. How did you become so certain about this? By losing everything and discovering I could survive it. By learning that integrity matters more than reputation. He smiled slightly. And by meeting people like you who've endured far worse mockery than I ever faced, yet maintained their dignity. Spring came late but spectacular, turning the mountains emerald and filling meadows with wildflowers. Hannah had been living at the cabin for 6 months, and her life had transformed completely. She'd gained confidence, learned to shoot accurately, and discovered she enjoyed the solitude of mountain living. More importantly, she'd stopped defining herself by other people's cruelty. Then, one afternoon in late April, visitors arrived. Not threatening this time, but unexpected nonetheless. A family in a covered wagon, looking exhausted and desperate. The woman was heavily pregnant, and they'd gotten lost trying to find the pass through the mountains. Please, the husband said, we just need directions. And maybe some water? We're almost out. Come inside, Hannah said immediately. I'll prepare food. Captain Mackenzie can show you the trail when he returns. She fed them, hearty stew and fresh bread. The wife, Mary, was so grateful she cried. We've been lost for 3 days. I was starting to think. She trailed off, not wanting to voice her fears. Mackenzie returned an hour later and immediately began helping. He drew detailed maps, explained the route, and insisted on guiding them to the pass himself. It's too easy to get lost. I'll take you through. It's only a day's ride. The family stayed the night. In the morning, as they prepared to leave, the husband pressed money into Hannah's hands. For your kindness. We can't repay you properly, but we don't want payment, Hannah said firmly. We just want you to reach your destination safely. After they left with Mackenzie as guide, Hannah realized something profound. She'd helped people without once thinking about her size, about whether they'd mock her, about what they thought of her appearance. She'd simply been a decent person helping those in need, and that felt more valuable than any acceptance Prospect Valley could have offered. Mackenzie returned the next evening with news. The family made it through the pass safely. They're heading to a settlement 50 miles west. He paused. John, the husband, asked if we needed anything. I mentioned we were low on flour and coffee. He said he'd send supplies with the next trader heading this way. That was kind of him. People are kind when you give them the chance. Unlike Prospect Valley, which expected cruelty and got it. Over the following months, word spread through mountain communities about the cabin near Willow Creek where travelers could find help. More people stopped by, some needing directions, some medical attention, some just a warm meal. Hannah discovered she had a gift for helping people. She could treat minor injuries, comfort frightened children, and make anyone feel welcome. Mackenzie's military medical training combined with her natural compassion created an effective team. Then, one summer afternoon, a familiar face appeared, Mrs. Henderson from Prospect Valley. "Miss Brennan, is that you?" Hannah barely recognized herself in Mrs. Henderson's shocked expression. 6 months of good food, hard work, and peace had transformed her. She was still large, but she moved with confidence now, stood straighter, met people's eyes directly. "Mrs. Henderson, what brings you out here?" "My son and I are traveling to Oregon. We heard this cabin offers help to travelers." She looked around, taking in the well-maintained property, the garden, the neat outbuildings. I wanted to apologize." Hannah waited. "For that day at the Harvest Festival, I should have stood up for you. Instead, I turned away and let Wade and others mock you. I've regretted it ever since." "Why didn't you stand up?" "I was afraid of becoming the next target. I was a coward." Mrs. Henderson's eyes were sincere. "Seeing you now, seeing what you've built here, I realize how wrong everyone was. You're not what they said you were. You never were." "I know," Hannah said quietly. "That's what I learned. I was always worthy. Prospect Valley just couldn't see it." Mrs. Henderson and her son stayed for dinner. As they ate, Mackenzie joined them, and the evening became almost festive. "You were right to leave," Mrs. Henderson said to Hannah. "The town's still full of small-minded people. But there are some of us who wish we'd been braver, who wish we'd defended you." "It's not too late to be brave," Hannah replied. "Just start standing up when you see injustice, even if it's uncomfortable." After Mrs. Henderson left, Mackenzie turned to Hannah with a smile. "You've come a long way from the scared woman at the Harvest Festival. Thanks to you. You showed me I had worth." "No, I showed you that you could stand up for yourself. The worth was always there. You just needed permission to believe in it."